Hi class, I hope you are doing well and staying safe and healthy. This is just a quick video covering our research paper guidelines, the proposal, and how to research your topic. So I won't cover everything in this video, but if you do have additional questions, please email me or request a Zoom session, and we'll talk about that in detail. So on the homepage, you can access this information through modules, or you can scroll down to important course information. And this will also be listed in announcements and in the modules leading up to the final assignment. So you'll see this everywhere. And that's just because this is one of the assignments that probably causes the most dread for students. So in this case, we're just going to try and keep it simple so you get a good understanding of expectations. So we have our guidelines, which I'll go over in just a minute. We have our visual analysis guideline that you've been using throughout the course to help you develop your writing. You also have the Chicago Manual of Style reference, and I'll go over this citation style in detail in just a minute as well, because I know for many of you, this is your first time using this. And then you also have a proposal example and final research paper example of a draft. So both of these coincide with each other, so you can see how your paper develops into a final draft, and it's just a good visual. Okay, so I'm going to click guidelines. Here we have our deadlines. I try to give you as much time as possible, especially during the second half of the semester when students are often really tired. Your assignments tend to stack up a little bit more, especially as you reach finals. But the worst thing that you can do is wait to start this assignment during final exams. That's really shooting yourself in the foot. So I suggest throughout the course, if there's something that stands out to you that you really like, make a note or make a list of artworks that you're interested in. It doesn't necessarily have to be from the textbook, but just to give yourself a chance to brainstorm before that assignment pops up. It's going to make it much easier for you to develop your paper. This will also be checked through turnitin.com, which is a plagiarism checker. This is going to be something that is often an issue for any research papers, especially since everything is available on the internet. So citations are incredibly important at protecting students from being marked for plagiarism. In some cases, students have been suspended over this, and I hate doing that because it's something that can easily be avoided. So I'll show you how to create your citations, and if you have questions or are concerned about maybe paraphrasing too much, reach out to me and we'll go over ways to fix that issue. You also have your paper length and format with a list of components in your paper in order. So I try to give you everything that I can just because I know this is a confusing assignment. For your in-text citations, figure numbers, and bibliography, this may be different from other papers that you've written before. So we have what's known as in-text citations, which are usually footnotes or endnotes. You may be used to like MLA or APA as a style, but the Chicago Manual of Style is different. It's not nearly as scary as it looks. It's actually easier, I think, than using other styles. So in your, depending on what you're using for your device, you should normally have Word or Pages for your word processor. So with both of them, you should be able to insert either a footnote or an endnote. In this case, since I have a Mac, it only allows me to insert a footnote. And this is anytime you paraphrase somebody's words too much. If you're using part of a resource from your research, you need to cite it within your text. So within the body of your paper, you should have this littered with little numbers like this. So I know that you're using other information and you're not just copying directly from somebody else's source. So when you use footnotes, it's going to create a little footnote at the bottom of each page, depending on how many you have. And you'll just insert that citation. Okay, so for endnotes, they're going to be a little bit different. They're going to go at the very end of your paper, and you'll do the same thing where you type in that citation. So I do have a citation guide right here. On Word, it has it where you can create your own template where you just insert in that citation information and it'll create that in your bibliography. But I'll also show you other ways that you can already find this on some websites. Okay, one other thing in here is figure numbers. Because we're talking about art, we're going to be using images of the artwork that we also need to cite. So when you're having the body of your paper, when you're introducing an artwork, like here it says Eastman Johnson's painting, The Girl I Left Behind Me, you want to have the figure number that associates with that artwork. So at the end of your paper, you're going to have an area that's known as plates or reproductions. And you will have one image on each page with its image citation below. So here you see figure 1 that coincides with the text. So you want these to be in order. And usually it's the artist's name, the title of the artwork, the year it was developed, what material it was used for, like oil on canvas, the size of it, and also where it's located. So it's very an archival way of developing it. And the reason for this is that when the reader sees this, they know where it's located, they know how to access it in person, they know how to research it more on their own. And just like anything else, this image is its own citation. I know this sounds kind of confusing right now, but I promise it will make sense as you're developing your paper. So when I go back up here, you can see how that figure number is in there. And depending on how many images you have, it'll be figure 1, 2, 3, and it'll go in order, just like your plates and reproductions will go in order. Okay, sounds worse than it is, I promise. It's really not that bad. Okay. So down here we have our thesis options. I know for some students, they have a really difficult time thinking about what they want to write about. So these are just starting points for you. You don't need to use these specific ones. And overall, these are quite generic questions that are just to get you brainstorming art that you want to talk about. So it's easy to think about major themes that connect art to the world. Sometimes it helps to look at that first lecture where it's just introducing different types of art and themes and how they relate to the human experience. Some of them are more specific, like this one on Roman emperors and their lineage. Some of them ask questions of identity, race, religion. Some of them could be from a certain timeline. So again, you can use these specific ones, you can use elements of them, or you can choose your own adventure. So I often prefer for students to write about something that they actually want to write about. It makes it much easier to complete the assignment. And it gives you the opportunity to go beyond your textbook and online lectures. There are many types of art that are out in the world, especially in this digital age. So give yourself the chance to, use your own voice and develop a paper that reflects the way you see the world. That sounds really dramatic, but it doesn't need to be that way. I had too much coffee today, I think. So researching your topic, there's some important guidelines for this and also helpful tips. I apologize, my cat wants to be part of this video. And you have ways that you can break down your paper into components. So for me, the hardest part of my paper to write about is the introduction and conclusion, because sometimes you're not sure how your paper is going to be developed during your research. So normally I tackle the body of the paper. I will have different paragraphs that separate the art that I'm talking about, major themes within the art, the history surrounding it. Then I can piece those together and the majority of your paper is done. So it's not nearly as intimidating as if you're just trying to suddenly create an introduction that may not be ready yet. And then once you have your introduction, you then have your conclusion. So for me personally, when I have to write 20 plus pages or more, where it's just feels like a lot to research, and that's tiny compared to other research, It's a way of just not overwhelming yourself. But we can talk about that more if you run into any sort of writer's block. I have plenty of tips and tricks for that that I've learned over the years. And it's okay to change your idea. Sometimes you'll start researching and then you realize maybe I don't like this thing as much, or maybe I want to do this other thing that I found that's much more interesting to me. Go with that. You are not tied down to anything specifically. And if you really feel lost, which sometimes happens, keep pushing through that research, keep looking. And if you really need help, I can help you just pare it down and give you a topic to work on. I rarely have to do that, but sometimes, it's easy to get overwhelmed in this period that we're living through. Okay, so the last thing I want to show on here is your resources. These are some links that I find helpful, especially if you're unable to visit locations in person. And again, you want to practice social distance guidelines, whatever is available during this time. If you can't access these at all, you can do that online. So I'll show you how to access these collections. And this is just a starting point for you. There are many other art museums and galleries. Some are local, some are larger, that you can develop your paper from. Okay. You also have some databases and online references that I'll quickly show you how to access. And I don't want this video to go on forever, but these are important. So I will probably create a new video for that just because I don't want this video to go on too much longer. And that's pretty much it for this part. So I'm going to close this and just quickly show you your proposal example. Okay, so you have a thesis statement. In this case, I have two different ideas that I was thinking of for my paper that I wrote, years ago. And this one is relating to the Civil War as my historical timeline. And instead of just talking about the Civil War, I was trying to talk about something very specific since it was only a 10-page paper. And in this case, I ended up doing the first topic that I developed into a final paper draft. And the one that you see on the site isn't even the completed one. I have many other edits from there. So after I gave the gist of what I wanted to talk about, this changed a little bit as I developed my paper. I listed some paintings of interest. Now, if you're doing architecture or something else, you don't have to talk about paintings. And I tried to break them down into certain categories. That way, if this was too much, I could pare this down and only focus on one category here. So I think out of these, I used all of them, but in your case, you may only need to use one aspect of your outline. And that way I just can access that as needed. I can build on that. I know I added more artwork to it later on. And then just a running list of your bibliography. That way you're not accidentally losing a reference that you may need to use in your final paper. So really straightforward. I don't expect you to write an enormous amount of information right here, but try to write as much as you can. You can add notes about things that may be concerning you or maybe that you want to talk about that you're not quite sure how to approach. This is the place to just put all that information out so I can give you good feedback. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here, and then I'm going to start a new video talking about ways to find references and research your topic. Thank you very much.